Okay. What's going on, everybody? My name is Mang. Welcome back to Roll Mangging Solo Edition. With the game system being Heroes of Adventure. The campaign doesn't have a name yet. It may never have a name, we'll see. But I think this image is serving as kind of a, I mean, obviously AI generated, but just sort of a general motif of what we're looking at. We've got a walled city, a port city, farmland surrounding the area, and then giant mushrooms looming, shadows looming over everything. So, before we dive into it, let's recap. Basically, our principal character here, Garland, lives in the city of Guthwald, and he looked for work. Just, you know, public postings of work available, and he took a job with a local lord who, well, I think I said he was a noble, and then I called him a lord, but I think as this setting progresses, hold on. Okay, it's just throwing up an error. As the setting progresses, I'm not sure if I actually have nobility. And we'll get into the setting discussion in a little bit. But basically, this wealthier individual, this higher ranking individual, whatever, wants someone to delay this merchant named Kurthorn. And the reason for that, as we kind of thought about it more, was that Guthwald is a major exporter for the kingdom, which isn't a kingdom, we'll get to that, of crops, produce, all that sort of stuff. And this merchant makes annual or biannual visits to Guthwald to kind of check in on the crop situation, to report back to the, I think I said Merchants Guild. That's going to be the Ministry of, the Ministry of Trade, I guess. They're not the, you know, the principal focus of the actual crop production for the year, but they obviously stand to make some money based on the crop situation. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. So anyways, Garland decided that, well, so the, God, I'm already just floundering all over the area. There's a local area known as the Spores. And as we kind of developed, learned that the spores popped up a few months ago, quite rapidly, and is now continuing to spread, and is actually starting to affect some of the crops around Guthwald, and at this rate, actually threatens to kind of overtake everything. Now, the spores are not a secret in the area. Obviously, all the farmers out there that are working the lands know about it. Chances are a handful of them have already been infected in some way. Animals are being infected, so anyone hunting in the area probably is starting to experience it, or witness its effects. And of course, the government of Guthwald knows about it quite a bit, and they're trying desperately to stop it or halt it in some way, but so far that is not proving fruitful. So that's kind of the dire situation affecting the crops, which the merchant is going to report back on. Garland decided to prevent his ship from leaving port by just dropping some spore-infected meat from an infected boar on the docks, which he did. He was caught doing so. He managed to flee, of course. It wasn't that tricky when you can fly. But the damage has been done, which is what he wanted. So that's kind of where we left off. There was obviously some other events in there, but nothing too major. And so that was last week in the last session. Since then, you know, my decision to only stream this and play this once a week, in the interim then, I've been taking the part of a DM and really building out and fleshing out this setting and this world that we're playing in. Both for this game and future games, and, you know, maybe DMing for other people as well. Just so I can have a setting that is mine, that is my creation. So, before we get into talking about the setting, I just want to mention one thing, a rule error that I have been making. And that is specifically in regards to totem magic. I didn't actually read this section properly. So most spells, when you cast them, you make a magic check. Or you're making a check against somebody else's stats or something to see if you succeed. Totem magic, however, has a couple differences. One is, well, the main thing is that the magic is held in a totem, which is a part harvested from a specific animal related to the spell you're trying to cast. And then you have to create the totem from that part, and that's when you make the magic check. And that's when it costs you the health stress reduction thing, whenever you make the totem. But then after that, you can just carry a bundle of totems with you, and anyone can use them, actually, just by snapping the totem in half and breaking it, and then that activates the magic spell. No check required. So I had been doing it just as like normal spells, but there is a key difference here. So I think we're gonna rule that the only ones I've cast so far has been Flight. I'm gonna just rule that I started with a few of these totems. Just, you know, just to move things along. So I'm just gonna rule that I have one of those left. So one, well, let's see, Flight, totem times 1. And I think you can have a bunch of small things take up one slot, so we could probably just give myself the prowess totem times 2, say. So that's kind of interesting. Because then we could just kind of... I can't imagine it's that costly in an area with, you know, wildlife and stuff like that. But if you're out in, like, a desert or something, it might be a little trickier to get, like, a totem of might from a bear, boar, or elephant. It could be a little tricky, depending. But we're in a pretty temperate area right here that's got a good amount of wildlife. Prowess is a wolf, lion, or tiger. Wolves are definitely around, of course. And then the Flight is a hawk or an eagle. Hawks are definitely going to be around. Probably eagles as well. Maybe it's a little costlier to make if I wanted to, like, buy these ingredients. But we'll get to that when we get to that. So, that's totem magic. That's the major rule error that I've been making. The other thing I noticed when looking at some of the rules here, especially for timing, most spells that you see say encounter, which is a specific time frame related to some sort of combat or other, you know, intense situation. And an encounter lasts 10 minutes. The totem spells, most of them say turns 2 for the duration. A turn in combat is like 1 round, you know, obviously. A turn while you're exploring like a dungeon or other dangerous location is 10 minutes. But a turn when you're not in combat or in any sort of danger, like such you're in the wilderness, you're in a settlement, something like that, a turn is half a day. 12 hours. Or I don't know if they're interpreting that as like half your awake time, which would be 8 hours, but still, either way, it's a number of hours. So that means that my flight totem I've been cracking open, that's lasting for hours and hours each time. So that's important to keep in mind, which is a big advantage of these totems, because almost nothing else has that sort of length. You see a few of them that are like, here, 3 turns for an invisible barrier. You know, but usually it's like encounter. That's the most common time frame. And there is another flight spell, by the way. There is under air magic, fly. That lasts an encounter. So, you know. If you're ever actually able to get off the ground with it. Get off the ground with what? Oh. Right. Oh, you're talking about, yeah, the first encounter I had. Well, that's the thing. If I had actually read the totem rules, I wouldn't have needed to make a check for that spell, because I would have just broken the totem, and then it would have cast the spell. No problem. But it's all in good fun. All right, so let's talk about the setting then, because I have spent a lot of time cultivating that. So the setting is, the world is named Eristhyn. There are 7 continents. Asaria, Yokane, Talus, Kuros, Lyria, Aeroth, Urmura. Obviously, that's not all entirely relevant at the moment. I do have a map of the continents at the very least. I'm sort of fleshing things out still. So this is the main continent that we're on, which is Kuros. So that's where Guthwald is, and the spores and stuff. And this is Urmura, this is Aeroth, this is Lyria, this is Talus, this is Yokane, and this is Asaria. I'm even impressed myself that I remember all that. So, I decided I didn't want a kingdom. I didn't want a king and all that. That's lame as shit. I didn't want, like, multiple kings. I wanted something fairly stable. And kind of a little different. So what we have is a union. Called the Golden Union. So that is the nation that Guthwald is part of, that our character Garland is a citizen of. And the Golden Union has most of Aeroth controlled in some sense. You know, the fringes, of course, are like D&D Outlands kind of thing with orcs and whatever. But Aeroth is sort of their main, that's where the capital is. They have Kuros, but not much of it. Mostly just the region we're in, which is like this farmland that I think is like, it's like magically enhanced farmland from like, you know, ages past. Like they don't know who blessed it or who cast some permanent spell on it to make it extremely fertile, but it is, so it's quite valuable. And then they also have parts of Urmura settled. The population of the Golden Union is mostly human. The capital's name is Staunton. Staunton. That's on Era. So the population is largely human. There are small communities of elves, dwarves, halflings, etc., just to kind of have those elements in the setting. But I think there's probably, racial biases, I would imagine. These are all, minorities in this nation. With, it's like, how could there not be some sort of racial biases, right? When not only do these different small communities have their own cultures, they're their own like species. It's not like extremely hostile or anything like that. It's just they kind of keep to themselves within the Union. And there's not that many. But like if I use this setting and a player's like, I want to play a dwarf, it's like, okay, that's fine. They're not going to get lynched or anything. What kind of union is it? All right, so it is an oligarchy, technically. It's ruled by a council of, currently I have 7 individuals making up the council. There may be more as I think of stuff, but right now it's 7. And imaginatively, I've titled them the Golden Council. And so each member of the council is the head of a different ministry. So there's the Ministry of Commerce, the Ministry of Warfare, the Ministry of Magic, the Ministry of Bureaucracy, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Ministry of Law and Order, and the Church. I still do not have a name for their religion. I just could not think of one. It'll come up eventually. So each ministry then is broken up into sub-ministries. So I have the Ministry of Magic, and then I have as a sub-ministry also the Ministry of Magic. So I may need to come up with something more, something better than that. But so, commerce is broken up into the treasury, resources, which is like natural resources, trade. Warfare is broken up into defense and war. Magic is broken up into alchemy, and then basically everything else related to magic. Yeah, I'm aware that Harry Potter also has a Ministry of Magic, but they don't own... J.K. Rowling does not own that term as far as I'm concerned. Bureaucracy is the biggest one. It's broken up into labor, public works, agriculture, health, education. There's probably other things, and there could be even sub-ministries in here. Foreign Affairs is Ministry of Intelligence and Relations. Law and Order is pretty simply law and order. And then the Church, it's not a ministry. It's just, the Church. It's sort of like the ecclesiarchy from 40K. And right now I have it as a polytheistic religion. But I figured that they're sort of they're trying to push towards more of a monotheistic religion. I figure monotheism is just easier to kind of control from like a centralized government standpoint. If you just have one god, it's kind of easier to keep things reined in. You have one temple to one god, rather than it's like, all right, we're building a new settlement, we need 35 temples because otherwise people will be upset. All sorts of things like that. Monotheism is just simpler. So it's a very pragmatic approach to a state religion. So the Golden Council is made up of the heads of the various ministries, and then it's broken down further and further and further within those ministries. Everybody answering to someone, and then the council kind of makes all of the decisions. I've also decided that various regions of the Union, like the capital, the Guthwald, there's settlements in Umura. Various regions will have a leader that kind of handles everything going on day to day and stuff in those regions. So we're going with just governors. So Guthwald has a governor, and he kind of runs Guthwald as well as the surrounding small settlements and the farmland and all that. So he's kind of responsible for making sure that their settlements in Kuros kind of keep functioning. Food and stuff keeps getting pumped out. So we have him as Maximus Aurelian. He's very ambitious. He's technically part of the Ministry of Bureaucracy, but he's shooting for a position on the council as perhaps the next head of bureaucracy. As long as that guy is a flying spaghetti monster. No, I mean, that is sort of an element of the setting, but no, I was thinking more of like a Zeus or an Odin figure, kind of an all-father that they could just keep kind of like attributing more and more responsibilities to, as far as like, you know, what each god handles, and just kind of emphasizing one god over the other is just being like, yeah, I mean, why do you need any other ones? You've got this main all-father dude. Are the council / local leaders corrupt or benevolent? Oh boy, I'm a very cynical human being. So corruption is fairly rampant throughout the Union. Meaning that the title of Golden Union is a bit of a misnomer that I'm sure plenty of unfortunate people have laughed about in the setting. So, plenty of corrupt guards, local officials, you know, things like that. Not all of them, you know, and this isn't 100%, this isn't just a crime state or something like that. And I'm not gonna decide for every single governor at the moment. But as for Maximus Aurelian, who's the most relevant to our current game, he's not corrupt in any sense. He wants to do a good job, but mostly because he's ambitious for more power and prestige, rather than like he actually cares about people. But he's not like I mean, there's certainly no like comically evil people in the setting. But yeah, I mean, he cares about looking good, both from a public point of view as well as a private point of view. But yeah, I mean, you know, he's human. So currently, at the time of this game, the Golden Union is at war on two separate fronts. For their settlements on Amura, they're being raided by the Northerners that live in the northern part of Amura. Like, fairly consistently being raided by, essentially, Vikings. And so, that's kind of a problem, but it's a distant problem that they're not really like fully committing to, because they are more concerned about their other war front, which is on the western coast of Aeroth, and that's against the Empire of Nim, which is the empire from the continent of Talus. So specifically, this region here is a war front on this western coast. This is Talus. This is where the Empire is from. And I decided to dip into some of my past world building. For those that don't know, a number of years ago, I actually did a Kickstarter for a whole world setting that I titled On the Backs of Gods, which was basically a setting that was extremely like hostile and inhospitable. You know, the flora and fauna of the world were just like, you know, giant horrific monsters and killer everything. You know, They didn't want anything to survive. It was bad. So how humans survived on that setting was by building their settlements on the backs of these gigantic titans. These just massive lumbering creatures that either walked on 4 legs or 2. You know, there was a variety of them. And so, you know, each settlement was kind of different based on the specific traits of the titan in question. There were some titans that were abundant with like trees growing out of their backs. There were some that just walked on 2 legs, and so the layout of the settlement was different. Some titans had just like natural minerals built into them. Australia, yeah, exactly. So, you know, I did quite a bit of world building for that setting and fleshing out all these different titans and the different cultures and stuff. The Kickstarter, of course, was a big failure because I didn't really have anything. It was a big mistake. I shouldn't have even thought about it. Later, I tried to pivot it into a board game, of which I still have a bunch of design documents for the board game on my hard drive, but no, I didn't do anything with it. But now it has its place here in our new setting. So Talus is extremely inhospitable and is filled with these giant titans walking around, and the Empire of Nim has all their settlements on the backs of these gods, and they do worship these things as their gods. That is their religion. So, one of the main things that I had from that setting was airships. I really liked the idea of airships. I wanted them to be involved, and I figured that's how the people on these different titans communicated with one another and traded with one another, was through airships. So I still wanted airships to be involved, but I didn't want everyone to have airships. I wanted it to be kind of confined to Talus and the Empire of Nim. So what I did was I created like a subspecies of human, an offshoot of humanity. It happened thousands of years prior, probably due to some sort of magical event or, you know, who knows what. We don't have to delve into it. So the humans in this setting are all pretty much part of the Golden Union, or, you know, they're scattered in a few other places. The Northerners in Amura and stuff, those are humans. I mean, most humans are going to be humans, but the people of the Empire of Nim are Nimians. And Nimians are a little bit bulkier, they're a little bit more muscular, and they actually have like bone plating under their skin. Because these people have evolved. They evolved for a while to kind of survive in small settlements on the land before they actually built up settlements on the Titans. So they're definitely hardier, although, you know, give it a few thousand more years, I'm sure that'll start to change. And so the key difference is that humans have a greater proclivity towards being magically talented. They're more likely to be born with some amount of magical ability in their blood. Like Klingons, yes, exactly. And magic has made life easier for humans. They've been able to solve problems through magic that other species wouldn't necessarily be able to solve otherwise. Nimians are less likely to be born with magical talent. It's quite uncommon for Nimians. And so therefore they've had to develop more technology in order to compensate for the lack of magic. Like, you know, they don't have a ministry of magic really or anything like that. It's pretty rare. So that has led them to, over the time, develop airships, which the Golden Union has not developed in there, and they're trying. They're desperately trying, but so far they haven't cracked that specific thing, because they're like basically 100 years plus behind as far as technology is concerned. And so, yeah, that's been a pretty big deal. The Nimians worship the Titans, and they have a very, very specific small cabal in their religion, known as the Speakers. And the Speakers, you know, it's an extremely rare thing that someone is born and is, you know, claimed to be a speaker, because those are individuals that claim that they can hear the thoughts of the Titans, and they can even communicate back to the Titans. Whether or not that's true, I still have not decided. I probably won't actually decide that until it's like relevant during a game or something. Interesting to see humans lag behind technologically and rely on magic, usually the other way around. Yeah, I mean, because I figure when I'm playing D&D or something like that, if I have magic, which I tend to pick, it tends to just solve problems. I rely on magic to solve problems that otherwise, if I was just playing like a normal thief, I'd be kind of screwed. I'd really have to like think around or you know, get creative without just breaking the rules through magic. So you have that for a whole species for thousands of years. Yeah, they're gonna kind of rely on magic. The easy way out. So anyways, the Nimians can't control the Titans in any way. They can't direct them where to go. And even if they could, they probably wouldn't, because that would be like, you know, telling a god what to do. It would be kind of blasphemous. How do they build airships if their entire settlements are on giants' backs? Where do they get resources and space for airships? These creatures are quite massive. I used to have... Actually, hold on. Let me see if I can find... I actually commissioned an art piece for the Kickstarter. Costs quite a bit of money. But just, you know, so I had like a focal thing that people could look at and be like, oh, that's cool. There you go. This is the art piece that I commissioned. So these things are massive. This is probably one of the biggest ones. I don't even remember the name of this one. Maybe it was Minos or something like that. But they're quite big. Some of them are definitely smaller than that. But, yeah, there's not really a space issue. Yeah, I mean, there was a variety of designs that I had. This was the desert one that I found that I was like, yeah, that looks pretty good. You know. And then there's, like, this one, which I think I've used in the Exploring Series video or two. So this one obviously wouldn't have nearly as much population on it. But they're on practically every Titan. They are kind of delving into its body for resources of all different types. So, you know, rocks and metals, trees, lumber, you know, all the... It's basically like an ecosystem for every Titan. Do they move? Yes. They roam the land. They roam the entire continent constantly. They never really stop moving, but they do move quite slowly. It's very rare for a Titan to just stop for an extended period of time. And I think the only one that I specifically made that rule was, yeah, the desert one. That one had a very specific route that went through the desert for like 9 months of the year, and then there was a 3-month period where it actually went out of the desert for a little while, and that's where they like really stocked up on like rainwater and all that sort of stuff for the rest of the 9 months. So that one was kind of a specific route that I just had him take, but most of them it's just they have no knowledge really of where the Titan's going to go, or you know, its path or anything like that. How did they get on the backs in the first place? Do these Titans have long nap times? People settle on them. No, I mean, initially this would have been hundreds and hundreds of years ago. Like I said, it's very rare for them ever to stop and sleep or anything like that. How did they get on the initially? They probably just climbed up the legs or something like that. I mean, these are very big things. They're not gonna like notice someone like, you know, climbing it like a rock wall or an ice wall or something like that. It's legs or its tail or something. Even if they did notice, they never seem to react to anything. They're really more like forces of nature than like an actual creature, which is part of how they've become worshipped as gods. But anyways, so yeah, it's actually very important to the setting that they can't be controlled and they don't know where they're going, because this war kicked off when one of the Titans walked, or basically swam, across this sea. And ended up on the western coast of Aeroth. And the Empire of Nim and the Emperor took this as a sign from the gods that they wanted the people, the Nimians, to invade and take over this continent as well. You know, they took this as like, okay, this is a great shift now that's happening. When in actuality, you know, this creature just kind of wandered over there somewhat randomly. But to their knowledge, it's never happened before. So they're taking it as a sign from the gods, and that's the war. Does the continent get trampled if they keep walking all over it? Yeah, I mean, to an extent, sure. But it's like the surface is yeah, I mean, no one's bothered, I guess, by the fact that they're trampling over it all. There are people that live on the surface of Talos, in like very small communities. You know, you think of like just like a death world from Warhammer 40k or something. Like it's quite rare, but they are out there. Okay, so that's that. I do want to actually get to playing. We've been talking about the setting for a long time here. The only other thing I wanted to mention is Issaria, which is up here, the far northwestern continent. That's known generally as the Commune. So this is a nation that is ruled by a group of necromancers. Specifically, the 3 highest ranking members of the Commune are actually liches. But there is a whole collection of necromancers that make up the government. And pretty much when you're born in the Commune, or you immigrate there, which is quite expensive to do so, you have to sign a contract that upon the time of your death, you give over all rights to your corpse to the Commune, to the government. At which point they will reanimate your corpse. Well, first they will strip it of all flesh. They will reduce you to a skeleton. Then they will reanimate the skeleton. And then they'll kind of wrap you in garments. And then they will put you to work. Because all manual labor, or most manual labor and physical labor in the Commune is performed by the undead. And so they've created sort of like a utopian state there that's instead of robotics handling everything, it's all undead labor. So they stripped off all the flesh to avoid, concerns about diseases spreading and smells and other issues like that. They wrap them in garments to just kind of, obfuscate the situation a little bit. No one really wants to look at skeletons moving about. So they're all like in robes, hooded, they have masks on, and the garments have identification on them to kind of show what district they're meant to be working at, what their job is, things like that, identification numbers. Did the undead form workers' unions? No. The undead are all pretty much strictly controlled. And it is certainly kind of an ethical question of, is it right, do the undead actually, are they cognizant of anything they're actually doing, or are they just like a puppet that is just being, put into motion through necromantic magic? No one's really speaking with them, or I think D&D has speak with dead. I don't know if that works with the undead, but no, for this setting and for the commune, all the skeletons are completely mute, and they're all very diligent. They're essentially robots that just do their jobs, which is, mining, manufacturing, farming, personal servants, pretty much anything that doesn't require some sort of technical skill, which allows all the living inhabitants of the commune to basically do whatever they wish. They can work if they want in some sort of technical job, or they can just make art. It's like Star Trek. Will these necromancers enter the war on either side, or will they remain neutral? They will try to remain neutral as much as possible for as long as possible. Right now, they have everything they need. They have no interest in really meddling with anyone else. They keep to themselves. They are all atheists. There's not much use for, religion and gods in their part of the world. Their only concern is natural resources. The continent's not that big, and eventually they will run out of things like, metal and stone and lumber. They have an aggressive forestation policy, so they try and plant as many trees as possible. They have crop rotation and all, they're fairly advanced. They're probably technologically on the level of the Empire of Nim. They don't have as much population as the Empire of Nim. They do trade, but they don't really want to trade away any natural resources, and they can't trade away undead servants because necromancy is illegal or outlawed everywhere else. So they trade, some sort of their technical creations and things like that, in exchange for some other natural resources from places like the Golden Union. But yeah, they pretty much keep to themselves. Yeah, so that's the commune. That came about because I had an idea for a D&D character that was basically a necromancer that wanted to sort of instigate a industrial revolution through undead labor. And I was like, well, why don't I just take that idea and take it to its completion and put a whole continent on my setting where that took place. I don't think it's like a perfect utopia. Aside from the ethical dilemmas and stuff like that, it is ruled by liches. It's also, if you want to immigrate there, you have to supply a pretty hefty donation to the commune. Do the undead decay, or are they just in suspended animation? Yes. Eventually, the undead are released from service, but they're just bones. So I haven't actually looked into how long it would take for bones to kind of decay and fade. That's got to take a long time. They are in physical, laborious jobs. Accidents happen, things like that. So sometimes they do have to kind of like decommission a servant, but they also patch them up if possible. Okay, I think that's enough about the setting. Let's move on. Oh, no, I haven't even talked about all this setting because there's stuff that's still kind of relevant to us. So, I can't even remember what we all decided last time I played, last week. But I have sort of figured out the origin of the spores and all that. So last time I remember I was talking to that other hunter, and I rolled a random rumor, and we decided that the spores, the rumor is, they're all being caused by this magical gem that was stolen from a secret ancient vault. So I have decided that is what happened. That is a true rumor. And this was the sequence of events. And this is, again, part of the setting, the world building. I figured in a setting where you have magic and magical creations, and you have wizards that are capable of wielding magic and creating objects that just exude magical power, you're gonna have some bad, dangerous shit. Such as this gem that is just causing spontaneous mushroom growth. You're just gonna have things that are quite dangerous, even just to be in existence. And I would think that there would be some sort of organization that sets about to contain these dangerous things. And so that brings us to the Society for the Containment of Paranatural Phenomena, or the SCPP. More commonly, they were just referred to as the Society. So they took it upon themselves to try and contain magical phenomena that was just inherently dangerous. They did contain things that needed to be like activated or wielded in some sense, but mostly they were concerned with stuff like this gem, that just holding it or having it on your person or just being around society was a danger. So they had facilities, and they had these ancient vaults, essentially, where these things were contained. You know, through magical anchoring fields, or, you know, other sort of cells. But at the time of our game here, the Society is kind of defunct. It no longer is around. Not to any degree of what it used to be. I don't know what happened to the Society. As a DM here, I haven't decided. But basically, their facilities are no longer active. And that's leading thieves and other adventurers and spelunkers around the world to kind of delve into these ancient ruins and find these things that were once kept away, such as this gem. And I decided that the Basin Lake at the top of the nearby mountain range, which is now a flooded ruin, that used to be a Society facility. And in it, they contained, among other things, this mushroom gem. Until a thief managed to spelunk his way in there and steal the gem. And the gem is activated by heat, even body heat. So it was kept initially in basically like a cold cell. But now it's sort of defunct. There was still a lingering magical effect there that was enough to just kind of keep it dormant. But once he took it out and he exposed it to his own body heat and the surface air and stuff like that, it activated and it started to infect him. So he made his way down the mountain, and by the time he reached the bottom of the mountain, he was already feeling it. It wasn't a good feeling. But he didn't attribute it to the gem. He attributed it to, the mountain air or something like that, or maybe some sort of plant he touched. Because as far as he concerned, he just got like a big emerald or something, just like a big precious gem. He didn't really think of it as a magical. He wasn't a very smart thief, let's put it that way. But he managed to stumble his way over to where this church was. And this church was kind of in the middle of nowhere. He didn't go for a settlement because he's a thief. The only settlement was Ox Hill, which was just a small farming community. So he made his way eventually to this church. He wasn't like searching for it or anything, but he found it. And this was a church dedicated to Malix, which is the god of the untamed wilds. And so that's why it's kind of in the middle of nowhere. They worship, this god who's focused on growth and fertility and untamed nature. And by the time he showed up at their doorstep, he was like sprouting mushrooms from his skin and like out of his ears and stuff. And so the priests there took this as a sign from their god that this man was like a saint or something. He was like a sign sent for them. This was a living sort of representative of the untamed wilds and untamed nature and growth. So, they kind of took him in and venerated him when really he was just like desperately trying to be saved. And so he quickly died, and they gave him a very, impressive burial spot, like in the middle of the church. But the gem was active now. So the growth continued. And mushrooms started to like burst out of the ground, or out of the floor of the church where they buried him. And they just took this as an even greater sign from their god that they have been kind of blessed, and their church has been blessed. And the mushrooms continued to grow. And spores started to appear. And that's when some of the less faithful of the church was like, all right, fuck this. Something's not right about this. And so they went back to Guthwald. And that's where we kind of heard this rumor now. Because, one or two of them that came back started talking about, like, why they came back, because he was buried with the gem. And so, they sort of believe that the gem is what's responsible for all this. But the main head priests of that church, a few of them stayed behind. And they are now like fungal men. They have been fully converted, and they are spore people now. And the spores continued to spread and spread and spread. And that brings us to the present day. Okay, let's finally play. Jesus. I mean, part of the whole fun of this experience, though, is everything that I just talked about. Of expanding this world and creating this setting and deciding all these things like a DM. DMing is not a shitty, like, job or anything like that. DMs typically, or they should, enjoy what they do. And I enjoyed fleshing all this out. Right. So I also have a map of Guthwald that I put together. This is very rough and very ugly. Are they mushroom zombies? Yeah, pretty much. I don't think they're dead. which is more horrific. I think they are alive still, but they're basically just like servants of the mushrooms and this sort of collective. And there's loads of other like fungal creatures in the area now. All right, so yeah, I mean, I tried using like a random city generator and I got nothing I really liked. I tried looking at other people's port city maps and I didn't really like anything. So I said, fuck it, I'll just sketch my own. It looks like a hot mess. I'm aware. It does not look good at all. I'm not an artist. But we can pick out the main features here. There's the northern gate. That's the main thoroughfare. So there's one giant road that leads all the way from the main gate to the docks. And the docks, there's all sorts of warehouses and things like that. So, you know, there's always some sort of produce moving through the main road through town. Yes, we'll get to that, Darren. Don't worry. I need to describe the city first. So the main road, and there's shops and stuff like all along this main road. The main sort of trading area district is here in the northeast with this big square where merchants set up their stalls every day and stuff like that. Most of these buildings in the city are residential, they're houses. But that's sort of a shopping area. This sort of penis road here, that's the temple district. So most of these are just different buildings to different gods. And then the big one at the end is to the principal god. This area to the east that's like extra walled in, that's the ministry district. So these are all buildings devoted to the different ministries. Ministry of Trade and the Ministry of Law, the Ministry of Alchemy, you know. All those buildings are in here in sort of a nice part of town. Over on the west side, this sort of cul-de-sac area, this is the wealthiest part of town. This is where all the big houses are and the wealthy people. Also, along the river that goes through town, those are all going to be relatively nicer houses. You know, houses along the dock area here are not as good, or, you know, kind of tucked in there. But most of the people that live in the city live in decent houses. Everyone else lives in the slums outside of the walls, known as the dregs. So they kind of live along this river here. They probably also live on the other side. I didn't draw it in. And I figured there's a river that goes all the way through town. But the wealthy people of the city probably don't want the slum peasants living on the river and like shitting in it when it all goes downstream through the city. So I decided they kind of passed a law that made it illegal for anyone to set up any sort of building or resident shop, whatever, along the river outside of town here. So that's why they're all congregated along this off branch of the river. So this is where Garland lives, in the dregs. I don't know. He probably lives like right... Now I clicked something. But he lives in the dregs, somewhere in the middle of there. And so yes, when we last left off, we had been caught by a guard while trying to plant some of this infected meat on the docks, and we did plant the meat. We were wearing a plague mask, so our face wasn't seen. And we dropped the canister, which had the spores and everything in it. So there was no doubt of what I was doing there. Not really. And then I flew off into the night sky. And after I flew off, I dove into the ocean to wash off all the spores and stuff that touched me. I dumped my plague doctor masks out there in the ocean. And then I flew back out to the dregs, you know, under the cover of night, and went back to bed. And wait for all this to blow over. things then went quickly, I would say. The city took action quite quickly. So by the time Garland awakes in, like, 11 a.m. or something like that, he already hears word from the other people around him that the city has enacted a quarantine of the entire city and the docks. No ships are allowed to leave. No one is allowed to leave the city or come into the city unless, they're, like, cleared. All right, thanks, Marin. Have a good one. So they still need farming to occur. So they still need farmers to do stuff, and they're still trying to maintain some semblance that everything's fine and okay. So there are going to still be people coming in and out. There is still going to be crops coming in to go into the warehouses and stuff, but everything is going to be very, very harshly examined to make sure that there's no funny business is going on. So you're not going to be able to just pop into the city to go down to the bakery or stuff like that. Like, it's pretty much in a citywide quarantine. So that means that Garland and the rest of the people in the dregs are pretty much locked out. Unless they have a really good excuse or, some really good reason to come in. Or they sneak in somehow. And there are ways to sneak into the city. I don't know if Garland knows about them at this point. He's not a criminal. He's never had reason to sneak in. But as a DM, I will say there are ways to sneak in. So that's where we're at. And the quarantine, they have said, will be, I think I rolled for this, and I rolled a 2 for, like, the reaction. If it was a 1, I would have just said indefinite. But I think for a 2, we have to put some sort of time on it. So let's just say 30 days. It's a 30-day quarantine. And they haven't said, according to what Garland is hearing, they haven't said why they're establishing this quarantine now. There's no mention of any funny business on the docks or anything like that. They're really, from the sounds of it, trying to downplay anything. But they do acknowledge that this issue with the spores is a concern to them, and they just want to be, mindful of the situation and be cautious. So they're going to establish quarantine while they resolve the situation. Now, in actuality, they don't really have any clue how they're going to resolve the situation. But that's where we're at. Now, I have decided already that Donovan lives in the city. He is not part of the dregs. He probably could be in the dregs, just because he's a sellsword, a level 1 sellsword. I doubt he has much money, but maybe he's got, like, some uncle that lives here or something. I don't know. So I'm gonna have to say goodbye to Donovan for right now. And I think I actually deducted the money for him before I ended the session last time. So I'm going to give myself the 10 silver back. We are keeping Patrick around, though. He lives in the dregs with me. Okay. So let's... I don't think I put a date here. Let's say first job, the first session, that was May 2nd. And I think all of that was on May 2nd, right? Or did I sleep a day? No, I don't think I did. So I think today is May 3rd. And And I'm not coming up with fantasy names for months and days and stuff like that, because no one ever remembers that. And usually people don't care about months and days, they care more about, like, seasons, if anything. But just for ease of use, we're gonna just use the traditional names and dates and all that. So it's May 3rd. I know, I'm pretty certain I said, like, by the 7th or the 12th, I don't remember, was when Bartholomew was gonna pay. So we're gonna go with May 7th if Kurthorn's not in Staunton, and it's not looking like he's gonna be in Staunton. He will pay out. So we don't have to really concern ourselves with getting to Bartholomew until the 7th. For right now, we have to decide what we're gonna do. We could just spend this session and, like, go into a dungeon or something. You know, just dungeon delve and wait for all this to blow over. But Garland lives here. He's not extremely attached to the city. He doesn't have much love for it, or, you know, he lives in the slums outside the walls, obviously. But he does know people in the dregs and things like that. And he's generally a good guy. He doesn't really want them to all succumb to some sort of mushroom, fungal apocalypse. So I think if he could do something to solve this problem, he would like to. And he heard the rumor about the gem. If I were a player and my DM told me that rumor while we were just doing something else, and then, you know, all this spore stuff kicked off, I think we would take that as the truth. We would take it as, like, the word of God. Just because we have no other leads. So this is sort of the tricky thing with being player and DM. As a DM, I know the factualness of what's going on there in the middle of the spores. But as a player now, I also know that, even though I maybe technically shouldn't. The sooner that the situation gets resolved, the better. And I think even if I went in and solved the problem today, they still would keep the quarantine, right? So I don't think I have to worry about failing the other job, even if I solve this problem miraculously in an instant. But solving this problem is not easy, and I haven't really given it much thought, but now the time is kind of coming. So ignoring anything that I know, which is a tricky thing to do when theorizing. The rumor is that there's an ancient gem buried in the church or around the church in a grave. And that's the center of all this problem. So we need to be able to get to the church safely without being infected, ideally. Dig up the grave, take the gem, and then without the gem infecting us like it did the thief, like, toss it away into probably the ocean, I would imagine. I think the ocean will contain it. So what we need, we basically need some sort of suit, right? We need some sort of clothing that will cover all our skin, so nothing, you know, no spores are getting in on our skin. And then we also need basically a breathing apparatus that is going to work for a decent amount of time, more than the 10 minutes from the Plague Doctor's mask. That's not even getting into the problem of digging up this gem or finding the gem in a reasonable amount of time. As for actually handling it safely and getting into the ocean, we'll worry about that last. That's like the least of my concerns. I just need some cryomancy. When I was talking about this situation with my mom and my brother, actually, they also focused on the idea of like freezing the area. I countered with, first of all, I mean, how are you going to freeze the entire area? That requires probably a whole team of wizards. Now, we have a magic list here. I am not bound to this magic list. If I can come up with a magical effect that I think is reasonable, we can put it into the game. I don't care. But if we look at the ice magics list, you have like blizzard, a swirling storm of ice and snow, obscuring vision. That's an area of short. And in fact, all of this is going to be area short, except for permafrost, which is the miracle. Permanently covering a settlement-sized object in permafrost, forever freezing the contents. Now, I would rule that at this point, the spores is like a mile across, which is already bigger than a settlement-sized object. But I think that as a DM, if you brought me 2 wizards capable of casting permafrost, they could work in conjunction and freeze the entire region permanently. And that would do it, but you'd have to find 2 wizards that are both like the height of ice magic ability, and they'd be willing to permanently lose 2 health to do this. It is possible. It could be done, but not for cheap. And probably not that quickly. You were thinking some sort of aura of cold that extended from you like an amulet. Well, I mean, there is the ice armor spell. Covers the target in a layer of ice. Now that enhances their defense, but I would also rule that, yeah, I mean, they're probably pretty cold. Okay, what's the time on that? An encounter. That's 10 minutes. Alright, now this brings up another thing. I can't cast ice magic spells. I can only do totem stuff. But there are scrolls. Scrolls are one-time use. They're created by a wizard capable of casting that spell. They require a week of time, some elementium dust, and some parchment. Once the scroll is created, anyone can use the scroll. Doesn't require any sort of magical ability. There's no magic check, nothing. You can just, anybody, Joe Schmo, can open it and use it. So I figured that the Ministry of Magic in the Golden Union, they have teams of wizards that make scrolls for sale. Not the really dangerous stuff, nothing like offensive that can cause damage, but a lot of the like useful utility stuff, that's all available in shops in cities around the Union that you can just buy. I mean, because there's loads of stuff like detect magic or something, or levitate, or lock. You know, all these things. There's loads of magical effects that are just like useful to average people potentially. That if they have the money, they can just buy. So that is an option, but the base cost for making a scroll, say for yourself, is 300 silver. We have 30. How cold do I need it to be to become inert? The gem? I mean, I would probably just say like 0 degrees or something. Which, you know, if you chucked it into like the northern mountains or something like that, it's probably fine. But you know, it has to be a pretty consistent 0 degrees, because if it activates and starts kind of like terraforming the area, it is possible that it won't ever be unactivated on its own. So that's one of the big problems though that we have is that we don't have money. So I think that's why we probably need to go spelunking. We probably need to go into some sort of dangerous situation. And I don't have Donovan. But we could hire a sellsword from the dregs, I suppose. We could just get a different guy. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the point that I brought up to my mom and my brother, that it's like, even if you froze the area temporarily to give yourself time to go in, you'd be traveling through and like working in potentially dangerous weather. Now, there is, under the water spell list, there is a spell called Breathe. That lets you breathe underwater. Now, I figured that that would be easily adaptable to just breathing in anywhere, breathing in a vacuum. Even if it's not technically a water spell, I would certainly rule there's probably a spell that they could create to let you breathe in a vacuum. So that probably exists as a scroll. And if you critically succeed on your roll when making a scroll, it's amplified. Meaning that it lasts for an hour instead of an encounter. So, probably for a premium price, I could buy a scroll that would let me breathe in a vacuum for an hour. Combining that with my ability to fly, if I wore a suit that protected all my skin, I had the spell active for an hour, I could just fly into the church and hopefully retrieve the gem in the matter of an hour. As for beyond that, with actually handling the gem, I think the safest bet probably would be to have that scroll of like ice armor that just kind of like froze my whole body. I think as a DM, I would say that would prevent it from it affecting you. It would freeze it to a cold enough temperature. I don't have a price for a charged scroll, like an amplified scroll, but I would assume it's like at least 5 times as expensive. Although I don't know, because these are all rules for like players. I can't imagine the Ministry of Magic is just cranking out scrolls with a 5% chance of a critical failure that destroys all the components and a 5% chance of amplifying it. So I would probably rule that they have like a 1% failure rate. And they certainly can just make charged scrolls, but it just costs them more ingredients, which is why the price is so much higher. Good old-fashioned thievery. Ugh. Well, I'm not a thief, as in I don't have any real specific abilities related to being a thief. And if you look at, like, what, the rogue class or something, some of the things they get: advantage on senses checks, advantage on sleight of hand checks, advantage on open lock checks, can reroll any die. I mean, I guess there's a moral dilemma that I wasn't really painting Garland as a criminal too much. But what would I steal? These scrolls? You want me to break into, like, an official Ministry of Magic scroll shop? That's gotta be locked down pretty solid for a level 1 character. Yeesh. Now, I could steal money. Or, you know, some sort of goods. I do have the ability of flight, which is quite handy. Well, I mean, what would we rather do? Break into homes or businesses in town under quarantine when everyone's at home to try and get money, or go out spelunking or find a dungeon or something like that? But, I mean, we're going to need money. Even if I wait for the payment from Bartholomew, that's only 500. That'll cover, like, one normal scroll. Maybe I set that payment too low. I don't know. All right, well, just to get the ball rolling, just to do something. Let's just hire a sellsword from the dregs and go out and try and find a dungeon or something, or some sort of location. How common is flight? Why does my random poor guy have that? Well, magical ability in this world is not based on wealth or anything like that. There are certainly families that are trying to breed magic into their bloodline. But it is just sort of just kind of a random thing. It's like being a mutant in X-Men or something, you know, just kind of, you're born with it or you're not. It's not a learned trait. So I haven't ruled down exactly how easy or difficult it is to learn different domains of magic. That might be something that you can just kind of learn. Or it might just be, you know, at birth, you're capable of a certain number of domains of magic, which, you know, that answer might be 0. And then kind of as you level up here as a hero, you might pick certain domains. And that's narratively, those are the domains that your character has just like, is just naturally capable of doing. You're just kind of discovering that, you know? But yeah, my character Garland, he's probably known for quite some time that he has magical ability. And I guess he just, at first, he's gravitated towards totem magic. Now, we picked that randomly, but that, you know. As we level up, I'm going to primarily be looking at other domains of magic. We're going to be multi-classing like a motherfucker. Question is, does anyone suspect me as the flying culprit? No. Well, keep in mind how many people in the government of Guthwald know about this encounter on the docks. There's the guard. There's probably his, like, you know, superior officer. And then there's probably, like, the higher-ups in the Ministry of Law and Order in the city. And then the governor and, you know, his sort of little council. But most people don't know about any sort of flying man in a plague mask. And even if even the ones that do know, obviously aren't aware of all the people that live in the dregs. They might suspect, maybe, that it's somebody from the dregs, but it could just as easily be anybody. I think if it was like a repeated problem, and somebody like witnessed a guy flying towards the dregs, then there might be some big crackdown. But it's tricky to narrow down. Again, it's like a mutant in X-Men. Like, they kind of just look like normal people a lot of the time. So it can be really hard to tell who's got these abilities and who doesn't if they're not actively using them. But yeah, I mean, obviously I don't want to be flying in and out of the city constantly. I will be caught. All right, so let's get another spell sword. This is our third one now. Let's just roll some random features here. 20. He's got a noticeable mark on his face. He's an aggressive man. His motivation is mastery. He wants to be the best warrior to ever live. His occupation currently is a bookmaker. That doesn't make any sense. Roll twice. We need something really common. A buffoon. That's not a good occupation. A rat catcher. All right, that works. He's a rat catcher, but he's got motivation to be the best warrior in all the land. And he's got a mark on his face, a birthmark, and his flaw is that no, that's not good. Stop it. Oh, he's greedy. He demands a bigger share of the spoils. Okay. Perfect. And we don't have a good name list in Heroes of Adventure. It doesn't do that. I'd have to go to Knave or something for that. We like just wasting time during this series. Quinn. Okay. Quinn, level 1. Yeah, I mean, he's also got 5 health. It's rough out here for NPCs, man. He's gonna die a horrible death. He's a buffoon and a rat catcher. Charlie from Always Sunny. Yep. But he wants money, and he's gonna be the greatest warrior to ever live. He's got a long sword. No, that's a little fancy. What's cheap? Club or something. Alright, he's got a club. And a buckler and yeah, hide armor, sure. So he's got 10 defense. No, that would be 11. Yeah, he's got 11 defense, and club is a D4. It's not great. It's not great at all, but for 25 bucks, I don't think you can do better than a D4. No, even a quarterstaff's only D4. Okay. So, based on the map of the region, we obviously want to steer clear of the spores right now. So we're gonna go northwest across this farmland and head into this forest here. Maybe we'll find something there. And obviously, you know, we have no problem leaving the dregs. It's just slums. There's no quarantine there. Oh, I need to spend my 10 bucks. Or Quinn. Okay. So now, let's get some rolls going. Let's get a roll for a random encounter on the way. We're gonna encounter something. This might be, you know, at the edge of the forest or in the farmland. Something. It depends. But we're gonna encounter something. Or should we do a roll to see if I encounter something? It's probably more fair. But no, I want something exciting. Give it to me. 16. It's a plot NPC. Okay, and his motivation for being around here. He's scouting. You hope it's a rat. It's not. He's scouting / marking land. His reaction is aggressive. That doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Complication, not what it seems. Okay, plot NPC that's out here scouting / marking land. My first thought was the merchant that I was supposed to halt or delay, Kurthorn. But I don't know why he would be out here, especially with the quarantine in effect. So we need some sort of other... I mean, let's just introduce some aspect here. It could be... I mean, it could be one of these, like, fungal priests or something that's trying to, like, scout out a new lair or a new, like, you know, sort of hotspot for the fungus to spread from. But I don't really know why he'd be this far out. We could also just think of something fresh. A plot NPC from one of these farmlands. I don't know. The scouting part, I think, is what's throwing me off. A plot NPC. That's the trick. I don't have much of a plot. I have one plot that's like confined to an area. This is tough DM stuff going on here. On the fly. Well, there is guardsman that's doing some detective work. Over here, though, that's what's throwing me off. In this region and not near the spores? I guess he could just be solving some unrelated issue, but it's kind of all hands on deck for the spores. Now, I do have this area over here to the west. This desert that's got like a big sort of Vegas kind of city in it. And then a few other small settlements on the coast. And the Golden Union was actually planning on invading this area to take over it. So that they could control the entirety of Kuros, except for, you know, this up here. Which is pretty much my spot for At the Mountains of Madness. But they were going to invade until this shit happened in the west coast of Aeroth, with the Titan suddenly showing up. So they put a halt to those plans for now. So there could be somebody from the desert city doing something. Maybe they heard some rumors about the spores. I just don't know how interesting that encounter is. We could just forget the whole thing. Yeah, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Alright, fuck it. Let's roll again. 6. A level 3 monster. Oh shit. Well, that's serious. What's it doing here in the edge of the forest? It's trying to intimidate. That doesn't make any sense. It's gathering resources. Its reaction to me is very helpful. That also doesn't make much sense. This is what happens when you roll on random tables. Okay, but we need a level 3 monster then. Let's find a good one. Did they ever organize this by level? Not really. No, okay. Not really. We've got a drowned one, a fur needler, which is just an animate tree, gelatinous mass, a ghoul, a giant ant, giant crab, giant crocodile, giant frog, a harpy, ice elemental, a manta ray, Medusa, mutant bear. I really want to go with the mutant bear. Just because I want it to be a fungal bear that I have to kill. A helpful frog sounds great. A helpful frog. Alright, I am leaning towards helpful frog just because it wouldn't make that much sense for a fungal bear to be over here. Giant frog. Okay, I mean, I guess the giant frog could direct me to a dungeon. It could give me a quest. This is perfect. Okay, so Garland makes his way with Quinn and Patrick across the farmland, and they enter into this this forest, which is reasonably sized. And before long, they hear a croaking sound, a deep, rumbling croaking sound. And it doesn't take long for them to track down this small little pond, I guess, essentially. And in the middle of this pond sits, on a small, outcropping of dirt in the middle of the pond, a giant frog. I mean, it doesn't say here that he can talk, but it also doesn't say that he can't talk. Can the undead servants catch the fungus? Oh, you mean in the commune? Well, fungi do feed on dead tissue, but it's just bones. They're just skeletons. I don't know if there's anything to feed on. They can maybe, like, get covered in fungus. I don't know, actually. Maybe they're immune. So, obviously, we would approach quite cautiously. Weapons drawn. Because this is a giant frog. But the frog then speaks. And bids us welcome to his humble lair here in the forest. And asks us what we're in search of. To which I quite simply say, treasure. It says that it knows of a nearby den of evil, which houses great treasure, if one is brave enough to delve into it. I don't think he'd even ask for anything in return. He's just very helpful. He's like the best bud we'd ever hope for in a giant frog. He's having a really good day. I don't know. So he directs us to a nearby I guess pit? I don't know what you'd call it. I guess a dungeon is the sort of easiest generic term. Like stairs in the middle of the forest leading underground. Some ancient underground dwelling. And I suppose we'll have to delve in. We gotta find this treasure. So now we have the conundrum of developing a dungeon on the fly. So obviously this game has some options for developing some things, but it doesn't have anything for maps or stuff like that. And I don't know how it handles, like, what you'd find in any given room of the dungeon. Encounter, perhaps? No, I don't know. I'm not quite sure. I don't think, you know, developing dungeons on the fly, room to room, is certainly a little tricky and probably not ideal, because it's going to feel quite random. So there's that. I don't know if my book for Knave helps at all with that. I also have World Without Numbers, which might assist. Yeah, this has some stuff. Framework of inhabitation. So here we go. Important inhabitants in this dungeon we're finding. It's got 1d3 plus 1 major inhabitants, at least 2 of which are hostile to each other. You thought I had something that could generate a dungeon. Yeah, no, I mean, the map is relatively easy. I do have that. And I also, I think, have, like, a collection of maps. Like, this is from Dice and Logos. So, I mean, there's just like, there you go. That's the dungeon we're going into, or something. I mean, there's a bunch here. You know, there's the dungeon you go into. So, I mean, I guess we could just go with this. But, putting things into it, putting things into each room, there's not really anything random. There's not like a random generator that can really do that well, I think. And also, you know, you can just take somebody's like full dungeon, but then you can see the whole thing. You know what's in every room before you even step into it. Whereas kind of the idea of solo play is that you are like a player. You go into the room, you don't know what's there. It's a tricky, like, you know, where do we draw the line? There's a lot of stuff, and then here you got rooms of interest. You can just roll through that. Room layout, map vias, if you're actually gonna like design. Here, stocking the rooms. This is mostly what we're concerned with. So I guess, like, yeah, you could just kind of roll this for each room we enter. You know? But it's definitely a trick. This was the part I was most concerned about, of just doing a dungeon crawl randomly. As even with this, I mean, I can see the whole layout. If there's a secret door or a secret room, I know about it. So I think the dungeon crawl aspect of solo RPGing is one thing where it's just like, yeah, video games are kind of better. But let's say we enter into this dungeon. We're going down these steps. Quinn is in the lead, of course. He's got the shield. He's going to be the greatest warrior to ever live. We go down these steps, and we see a door on our left, but we got this big open room right in front of us. Let's decide what's in this big open room. So I'm going to roll a D8. It's a 3, so it's a hazard. And then is there going to be treasure in this room? Yes. Treasure in the first room must be a pretty bad hazard. So we're going to roll on the hazard table. Treacherous footing over dangerous terrain. All right. I think we've got just like a room filled with spikes. Which is sort of on the nose, I think, but fuck it. Half this room is just a big field of spikes, and there's corpses in the midst of them. And they're like greased. It's greased spikes. The floor around all the spikes is just in a perpetual grease spell. Deal with that. Okay, that's the room. And then there's a treasure chest at the far corner here that somehow no one has ever gotten. Good thing I can fly. Yes, you say that, but I only have one totem left for that. I haven't made any more. I probably should. But I can only fly for... We're in a dungeon now, so I can only fly for like 10 minutes. Once I use that, which is fine, but then I also, Quinn and Patrick are just left standing here. You gotta think more creatively than that, turd. We could, okay, I mean, there's a door here. If we rip that off its hinges, and one person goes over to the other side of the spikes, we could put a rope around the door, lay it on the spikes, the other two get on the door and get pulled across to the other side. It practically writes itself. So, alright, we got our spike room. Let's check out this other room then, because if we're going to take this door, we got to see if there's anything on the other side. So let's roll for the number 4 room. It's another hazard with treasure. Sometimes I question this dice roller, man. It doesn't seem... How could we have the exact same result? I don't like it. I'm re-rolling. Alright, 6 and 1. It's a distractor. And there is treasure in here as well. We're going to be loaded with it. Alright, what's our distractor? Trophies or prizes taken by the owners. Okay, what? Distractors are just objects or situations that the PCs can interact with and investigate, even if there's nothing particularly important about them. Use them to flavor the site and emphasize its past use and current activities. Huh. Well, that's a very boring room, I suppose. One of the things it says for, like, putting treasure into a dungeon is to think about, why is this treasure still here? Why has it not been taken before? So this is like the first room of the dungeon. Walk through here, and there's just a bunch of trophies there. These need to be cursed, or there needs to be some sort of trap. Something that has prevented people from just walking in and taking this treasure. These are trophies or prizes. I guess in that case, if they're trophies, they might not be valuable. These might just be like animal heads. Yeah, trophies from dead bodies, or yeah, something like that. Okay, I mean, that's pretty morbid then. These are just like human heads. All right, I like that. That would be good. That would be, if I was DMing, I really like that idea. All right, so it's just a trophy room with like human heads on the wall that have been like magically preserved or something. And their eyes are open, and they're just looking at you. It's pretty freaky deaky stuff, man. This place is owned by a serial killer. Yeah, it kind of seems like it so far. I like it. Like a wizard serial killer or something. Because the eyes all follow you as you walk through this room. He liked that. he liked being watched. Oh boy. DMing is fun stuff. Okay, so then we got 2 other doors here. We may as well check them. Let's check this eastern door here. See what we get. We got a 7, so it's empty. It's certainly distracting, yeah. I mean, I can imagine a group of players getting up to some shenanigans. Alright, I'm just ruling this as like a closet or something. Filled with just like rotten brooms and shit like that. And then the northern room is also empty, which is quite boring, but I guess that's simple. They're not even numbered, so that's how you know. I think I also read that no room in a dungeon should ever be empty. Because that's just boring and weird and stupid. But for the sake of random generation, we're making it empty. Okay, so we need to get the door off of its hinges. How do we want to do such a thing? I do have a saw, but that's probably not easy. How are old school doors hinged? Is it just something that you could like pull out? Probably. We have a hammer. We could probably just hammer out whatever's, you know, I don't know what the term for that is. The metal thing that goes into a hinge. I think probably just spending a little bit of time, we can probably just pop the hinges off to some degree. I think the frog is a serial killer and he just directs people there to die. Ooh. See, now you're thinking like a DM, Dern. This is very good. This is very good stuff. An extremely helpful giant frog that's just so eager to help you, direct you towards this magical dungeon filled with amazing treasure. Yeah. Wonderful. And then afterwards he comes here and finds your corpses and puts your heads on the wall. And then he jerks off. Yep. It writes itself. Alright, we have the door. It took a bit of time, but we've got it. So, we have rope. I'm almost certain. Yep, 50 feet of rope. So now the question is, how do we get one person over to the other side? I think the answer is probably we just send Garland over with his amazing agility. And he just rocks it. You really liked that frog. Well, you can still like him if you want. Alright. Yeah, Garland's just gonna carry the rope. And he's gonna brave it. It's not very smart. But he's probably gonna be okay. I think we should set the DC somewhat high. I'm thinking 15. Maybe? I don't know. Is that too high? 15 seems... I feel like it should be tricky. This is like the big... This is how he gets most of his victims. There's the treasure chest right on the other side, man. So it has to be pretty tough. So we're going to set the DC at 15. I think pretty much if I roll a 1, I'm just going to slip and I fall and a spike impales me through my neck. I think that we have to rule that, right? So let's just not do that. Yeah, here we go. 12 plus 4. No fudging of numbers here. Yeah, I mean, I was ready to accept an impaled through the neck death. I wouldn't have been happy about it, but I was ready to accept it. All right. So I do manage to gingerly step across the greased spike floor pit thing, carrying the rope on my shoulder. I make it to the other side. Quinn and Patrick put the door down across the top of the spikes, and these are fairly densely placed spikes, so the door can definitely just rest there. And perhaps logically the door wouldn't actually move. It would just get it scraped by all the spikes. I'm not quite sure. These things come up all the time when you're playing Dungeons and Dragons. When you're just trying to think logically of like, how would this happen? But it's like a situation that no human has ever tested in their entire existence. No one has ever had field of spikes and drag the door across it with 2 people on it. No one has ever done that test in real life, I'm pretty sure. So sometimes you just gotta wave your hand and say rule of cool and stuff like that. So, whatever. They make it across. It's gonna be shitty when we have to make it back across. But for now, we did it. Now, if we accept that this is a dungeon ruled by a serial killer who leads people here to murder them, he wouldn't really put anything in this treasure chest. Because why would he? He's hoping they all just die there. But we'll say that if somebody makes it across the spikes, and there's nothing in this chest, they don't really have any incentive to keep going. And he wants them to keep going so they'll die. So there has to be something in the chest. How are you going to get back out across spikes? You'll have to roll, see if it holds up for 2 trips across. Yeah, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Alright, so let's see what treasure we got. So let's roll on the treasure generator table. Some of these don't make sense, but we'll just see. 16 is raw materials resources. It's not very exciting for him to just put, like, lumber. Although it is kind of useful at the moment. Or I don't think we can. I don't think we want to roll on an artifact at this point. Resources. So this would be stuff like, yeah, coal and ore, peat. Do I really want to find a chest full of peat? Sometimes I think you just gotta rule something. Could be valuable to us, but means nothing to him. Well, currency certainly has no value to him. And he's probably collected a fair amount of it from all the people that have died here. So I suppose that makes sense. Currency is the easiest. Alright, let's roll on the D6 value table. We got a 2, so it's low value, which means we found 7 silver pieces. That's pretty... What am I doing here? Alright, I'm gonna take it, though. There's bound to be more. We'll get better as we go, don't worry. Okay. So we got a door on our left, a door to the south, and a door to... Well, doors to the west, east, south. Okay. Let's do... Again, we know the layout, which kind of spoils things. But let's go east. And we have here a corridor with many doors. Let us roll for the corridor. It's another hazard. Is there treasure? No, this is just a shit room. The hazard is unstable floor that crumbles under our weight. Wow. And he resets this every time. He must be a very powerful wizard indeed. Oh boy. Well, I mean, if this whole corridor collapses, then that's rough. I may have to bust out the flight at that point. I mean, it's definitely, yeah, that sort of thing, crumbling floor. I've encountered it plenty of times in my D&D career. It certainly happens. So it usually doesn't happen in a corridor like this, where you kind of want players to check all these doors and stuff, but yeah, I guess. All right, so the first thing we have to decide is how much weight to cause it to collapse. Is it just my weight? Is it 2 people's weight? Is it 3 people's weight? So let's do a D3, which is a D6 divided by 2. All right, so all 3 of us are going to be on it. So Quinn's out front, then me, and then finally Patrick steps onto the ground of this corridor, and it breaks away. That's really rough. Then we have to decide, what does it fall down into? Is it just... Are there like spikes down there? Is this something that he didn't plan? And it's like, this is just a first time and it just collapses into like a small pit or a cave down there? Or is it like a bottomless abyss or something, you know, down to hell? Honestly, I think the idea of him resetting this every time that it happens is kind of slim. That seems a little unusual. So I think it probably has just never happened before, and usually... I think it's probably very rare for a group of 3 to actually make it to this corridor. So we'll say that this is an unforeseen event on his part. The serial killer wizard. So there wouldn't be spikes down there. I think probably we're just looking at some sort of like... Maybe it's eroded because no one gets that far. Yeah, something like that. I think it's weird that there's anything underneath it at all. You know? But, yeah, so it's probably just some sort of like cave system that's just been there for thousands of years. So let's get a distance to the floor of that cave. Let's roll a D4 times 10. 40 feet. Okay, it's pretty far. I think we do have rules somewhere for falling damage. But there are ledges here. So there's a chance we can all 3 of us can grab onto something. So let's start with Patrick. I think he's got the best chance of jumping backwards into the doorway as it starts to crumble. But I'm going to set the DC at 10. So he's basically got a 50% chance. 9. All right. So Patrick falls. All right. We'll worry about if he dies. He probably dies. Let's be honest. Now Quinn. I'm going to set the DC at 10 again. He also just gets a D20 roll. All right. He managed to grab on to like the first doorway here. Or something. The doorway to number 7. There's still a ledge there that he grabs onto. And then there's me. I'm basically scrambling onto the side here. But this is probably agility, so it's useful stuff. And I rolled an 11, so I am also on there, but I see Patrick's falling. No. Alright, what are the rules for falling damage? If there there might not be rules for falling damage. No, I don't think there is. We'll have to just come up with something. What does D&D do? Isn't it like D6 for every 10 feet? Natural cave sounds right. Maybe it's how he moves around the place to avoid the traps himself. Oh, there you go. That's a good thought. Okay, so it's not like completely uncharted, undiscovered. He has used these cave systems. So it probably dumps out like nearby where his pond is, to be honest. He's probably like kind of down there listening for our agonizing death sounds. If we do d6 times 10 feet, that means I'd have to roll 1 4 times for Patrick to survive. A 40 feet fall. That sounds really high, doesn't it? I think it is really high. It's an unfortunately like high spot in this cave. If I break my totem, maybe I can save him, although I think the timing of that is probably quite tricky. I think by the time I even like saved myself by grabbing on and then noticed that Patrick fell. No, this is Patrick, my porter, who's carrying some of my shit. No, I mean, I don't... I mean, normally I like really rules light kind of stuff. Oh, here. Fall impact. Scale damage roll from D4 to D20. Okay. So if we say D20 is max. I mean, max... At a certain point, distance is no longer like a relevant factor, right? What is that point? What is the point where humanity... Oh, that's exactly what you're getting at. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm probably not going to save him. I just want to try and figure out... how much damage it would do. But there's got to be a certain point where a human falling is just dead. And even if you add on another 1,000 feet, it doesn't matter, it's still dead. But if you had it be 10 less feet, maybe it wouldn't be guaranteed dead. Oh yeah, I'm definitely not saving him. I guess like what's the greatest height that somebody has survived a fall? Oh, okay. This woman fell 33,000 feet and survived. That's crazy. What the fuck? I mean, I guess that's a D20 roll, and she rolled a 1 or something. But, it's not really useful to me. I don't know, I feel like we kind of just have to decide on something here. We can't just keep dilly-dallying. There's some pretty absurd cases of random luck where people survive falls. Yeah, I mean, you can roll a 1 on any of these dice, so I guess it's possible. All right, I'm gonna make it a D12. I don't know how accurate that is. Maybe that's too low. Maybe it should be a 20, but I'm gonna make it a D12. So this is how much damage Patrick is taking. 5 damage. He's at 0 health. So he just collides with the cave floor, and we probably can't even like see him down there, really. We just hear an impact, and he doesn't respond to our calls. So I think, so he's an NPC, and I don't think he's a VIP NPC. Although we could rule that. But probably I think he's just dead. And that's the end of it. If he was a hero or a VIP, we could roll on this wounds table. Assuming we recover him, like, soon enough. And then he just becomes, like, permanently injured. Gets some sort of problem. But, yeah, I think Patrick is dead. We hardly knew him, but now he's dead. More importantly, all my extra shit's down there. My hammer, my sack, my shovel, my whistle, my bucket. Fucking Patrick. Well, his death can't be in vain, alright? We have to find some good treasure here to make it all worth it. Damn that frog. Alright, let's check out room number 7. What's in here? It's a creature! Without treasure, but it's a creature. Okay, so now we need a creature to be in here. Something that the frog wizard serial killer has either trapped and is forcing it to be some sort of obstacle, or it's some native resident that the frog just kind of like accepts, lives here, and hopes that it might kill someone that wanders in. I think, again, a good DM would choose a specific creature. I don't think there's a random table. Oh, there is kind of a random table. If we want a random... Oh, yeah, I guess we could do a random thing, but we could get some wild... It's the frog in this room? He beat us here? And he's just sitting in this room and hoping that we see him? That seems kind of unlikely. I was thinking more like giant rats or something. Or undead. Yeah, I mean, maybe. But I don't think you put your big bad guy of the boss in the middle here in room number 7. Maybe he'd be in like room number 11 here. He's sick of us not being dead yet. No, I think it's fairly unlikely that it's the frog in number 7 here. I do like that this is like a secret path. That might lead to the cave system that he uses. But, no, for now, let's just go with, like... I don't know, something... We haven't had that much combat. Let's just go with, like, a skeleton. And honestly, like, one skeleton is probably enough. Yeah, it's level 2. It's got damage resistance. This is gonna be enough. Don't worry. Alright, and we're just gonna rule that it's hostile. It's ready to fuck. Normally there'd be D6 of them, but let's just roll it up. Okay, so initiative. Patrick level dead. Initiative. He has D4 for his rolls. So his initiative is a 4. He's very slow. Whereas mine is a 10 and Quinn's is a 5. Wow. Alright, well, we both go first. Quinn's gonna rush in with his club. And he's gonna swing. He needs a 10. He rolled a 3. He completely misses. He's panicking. This is like his first real combat. Now I have a bow. Sometimes you'd rule that a bow is not very good against a skeleton. I could do that, and I could rule that the club is effective against the skeleton, but we'll just keep things at an even keel for right now. So D20 plus D4 is 16. That's definitely a hit. And our damage is a 6. He's got 2 damage resistance, so we've done 4 damage to this bad boy. But now he's going to strike at Quinn. This is the moment of truth. Am I going to lose both of my buddies? 11 defense. He gets a plus 4. 9 plus 4. That is a hit. Damage is 4 damage. Oh my god. Quinn has 1 health left. Great. Well, Quinn's gonna try again to finish this. He won't finish it, but he'll try. He rolled a 13. That's a hit. Damage of 1. Doesn't even break through the resistance. Fuck. Alright, my roll is a 15. That's a hit. 4 damage, so that's 2 damage. He's at 4 health. Okay, but he's gonna strike at Quinn yet again. 6 plus 4 is 10. It's a miss. Thank God. This is very basic, just back and forth combat, but the stakes are high. Stakes are high with 1 health left for Quinn, but he's gonna swing. 15, it's a hit. 4 damage. So 2, it's at 2 health. Can I finish it? 4. No, that is a miss. I should have used the Totem of Prowess to give myself advantage, but we'll need it for the giant frog. Yeah, I don't know. My luck might not hold out. Alright, here we go. Skeleton striking Quinn yet again. I probably should roll morale, actually, for Quinn to see if he flees. Alright, let's roll that. I think his morale... No, I already forgot. Was the number just 10? Yeah, versus 10. So he needs to roll above a 10 to stay. He rolled a 20. Dude, he is in it to win it! He's in it to win it! Alright, Skeleton is going to strike him, though. Here we go. 3! Yes, only a 6. Quinn will kill him now! D20, 18! Oh, okay. He doesn't do any damage. Where is he going to go? Oh, he would try and run back across the ledge back to the pit, the spike room, and then he would try and just run through the spikes and almost certainly die. But those are the morale rules, man. Alright, I'm going to try and shoot him. 11, 15, it's a hit. And my damage, 4 damage total. We kill the skeleton. Huzzah! Oh, God. What are we going to do about Quinn? We could leave. Survive to fight another day. But Quinn with that 20, man, he wants to keep going. He's desperate to get the treasure, of which there's none in this room. I have no healing abilities whatsoever. I have nothing. We're so poor. We're so poor. Alright, let's keep shimmying along this ledge to the next door. We're gonna keep looking. I want to move this along. Alright, it's another distractor. Here we go. Oh, hold on. Is there treasure? No. Distractor is daily life debris from the inhabitants. Oh, so now... Ooh, we would notice that there's like frog stuff. It's like frog shit. There's like a painting on the wall of a giant frog woman. His wife. It's very clear to us now that we were led astray by this giant frog. We seek his death. Frog slime all over the place, yeah. It's a fucking crime scene here, man. Disgusting. Alright, let's continue along the wall, though. I'm not interested in frog slime. Let's check the next door. 3, it's another hazard inside this room. With no treasure. Why would I go in there? Trap set on a path of travel. Alright, it's a really obvious trap with no treasure. Fuck that. Shimmy around and go into number 8. The big room. This has got to be something good. It's an enigma. With treasure. This is it. What's the enigma? Substance with physically impossible traits. Substance with physically impossible traits. Alright, this is what I thought of immediately. It's a giant floating orb of boiling water. And in the center of it, we can vaguely make out is like a golden staff or something. Like a scepter. But the roof of this room is just filled with like steam. Something with only 2 dimensions, you can't see it at certain angles. It's funny you bring that up because that's sort of what I imagine the area beyond the God's Teeth is. I want that to be like my Lovecraftian area at the Mountains of Madness and stuff like that. And so I figured that is filled with things that you can only see from certain angles, or you can only see partially from certain angles. So, things like that. It's a good thought, though. But, yeah, no, this is a giant floating orb of boiling water with a scepter in the middle. And you can also see, like, some bones kind of floating in this swirling orb of some people that have managed to make it here but died trying to get the scepter. So this is the big room. I'm gonna say this has a diameter, this orb, of like 30 feet across. We don't have any of Patrick's stuff. Quinn only has his club and his shield. I do have a grappling hook and rope, though. So maybe we could just hook the scepter. Boiling water shouldn't really mess with a rope and a hook too bad. But I think the tricky part of that is actually throwing a grappling hook through like 15 feet of moving water and having it hit a target 15 feet in. That's gotta be like impossible, right? A bullet can't even go 15 feet into water. So really your only good option is to like be able to withstand boiling temperatures. I don't think I have that. I don't think I can. But God, yeah, I mean, I may have created a too big of a problem for myself here. Because boiling water. No, that would really suck. If I had that ice armor. Damn. Oh, no, I got it. Oh, I got it. I got it. Oh, I got it. Because I can fly. So we take the rope. All right? We take the rope. I fly. I go up into like a corner of the room, or, you know, above at an angle. Quinn holds one end of the rope on the floor, on the ground. I hold one end of the rope up in the air. And we get it so that, like, the middle of the rope is at the level of this staff, and then we just kind of move the rope by moving so that it catches onto the scepter in the middle, and then we just kind of pull it out that way. So that the rope, you know, we're starting outside of the water, and we move so that it passes through the water and catches onto the scepter in the middle, and then we keep moving until we take it out. That's the answer. Now, the only bummer with that is that I'm going to have my 10-minute timer then for my flight, and we'll be out of flight totems. But we'll get it. It's pretty clever. Well, thank you, Durden. I've been doing this a long time, my friend. Alright, that's what we're going to do. I don't think there's even a skill check involved. Because why would there be? And I just lose my flight totem. But we get the scepter out of the middle. So now we need to generate an artifact. That's what this is. This is like his big treasure that he's kept here. And now we're gonna generate it. So it's a scepter. We already know that. We could generate it as an object or as a weapon. Let's generate it as an object. Let's give me an effect here. Enchantment, charm, attraction. Ooh. Okay. I mean, we could be basic about it, I suppose. There is a charm spell. Here, this is the charm spell. Charms a target to do their bidding as long as it does not cause itself harm. Target can try to resist as a free action each turn. So we could just take that and kind of make it work as like a staff. Something that works repeatedly. It is, I mean, it's a very open-ended kind of charm spell. You can charm someone to do anything as long as it doesn't hurt themselves. And they get to try to resist as a free action each turn. I suppose. It's pretty good. So this would be... So normally it's a... Am I going to use it on the frog, make him go get the gem? It says it so long as it does not cause itself harm. I don't think that means specifically like harming yourself. I think that means so long as the action you're doing does not harm it. Is how I would generally interpret that. And he would definitely be harmed by going into the spores. So I don't think we could do that. We should have kept that skeleton alive. Charmed him to go into the spores. Although it's a complicated task without being able to monitor it. Alright, so it's a staff of charm, I suppose. And normally when you cast a spell, it's a magic check versus will. We're just going to say it's a blanket magic number of 15, which is pretty good. And we'll say it's usable twice per day. Sure. That's just, you know, on the spot rulings. Now, how much is that? Something like that worth? Probably quite a bit, honestly. A scroll of charm, if they sold it, I'm not quite sure if they would, because it's kind of removing someone's consent and agency is a little. They may not sell scrolls like that, but you know, the basic price for a scroll is like 300 or something, 300 to 400 silver. Now I doubt you could use it on undead. Does not require sustenance or oxygen and is immune to mind control, poison, and disease. So it's immune to mind control, which I would interpret as charm. You're controlling their mind in a sense. Necromancy is just different. Only the necromancer that created them can really control them. And oftentimes there's just uncontrolled undead, which generally are just kind of mindless, or they try and do things as they did in their former lives. Stuff like that. But no, generally you cannot mind control undead. So yeah, I mean, a scroll of charm, if they sold it, would be like 300 to 400, and that would be a one-time use. This is essentially infinite use. So we're looking at quite a bit of money if I can sell this. I don't know if I am gonna put a number on it at this point in time. Probably a lot. But I mean, for 5,000 bucks, I could buy a tavern. Should we put it at 5,000? I guess, I mean, on the one hand, it is kind of like sketchy to use, right? If you're going around just charming people to do your bidding, that's probably somewhat illegal. So, it's kind of a sketchy artifact. So you're not going to get top dollar for it. So I guess let's value it currently at 5,000. Now, whether or not I get 5,000 for selling it and who I sell it to, we'll see. And I may not sell it. Maybe I'll use it. Obviously I can think of uses for it, but I'm gonna put it in my inventory as the Scepter of Endless Charm. There you go, done. And I'll put 5,000 GP question mark. Okay, that's that. So we conquered that part of the dungeon. I think at that point we would be pretty happy. Garland would be pretty damn pleased, and we'd want to go back out. So let's make our way back. I'm not doing any checks for the ledge climbing, just because I don't think that's super exciting. May have to sell it on the black market. Yeah, that's true. That's very true. We'll burn that bridge when we get to it. But for 5,000 bucks or 4,500 or whatever I get, we could probably buy the scrolls we need to pull off the spore job. which there isn't much reward in that, potentially. We'd have to somehow prove that we were the ones responsible for stopping the spores. And we can't just, like, take the gem and show it to the governor and be like, look, I got this out of the church. I saved you. So, yeah, we'll see. But we make it back to room number 5, the spike room. And so now I'm going to have to make another roll to see if I make it past the spikes. So this is a D20 plus D6. And the number we're trying to beat is 15. Here we go. Crit. Ho-ho! This is the great... Well, Patrick died. I mean, we can't forget that. Let's tone down the celebrating. He gave his life valiantly. He didn't really do a goddamn thing, but you know. All right. Well, there's less weight on the door this time, but I guess we could roll to see if it just kind of like cracks apart while he's in the middle of the spikes. So let's roll a fate table. This is actually the first time we're rolling this. All right. Does the door break while he's being pulled across the spikes? Straight up 20. Yes, and some assistance or benefit. I will struggle to think of some assistance or benefit that I'd get from him, from the door breaking. Going to end up surviving and coming back for revenge. Ooh, that would be epic. If I remember, like 4 sessions down the road, maybe. Damn, what the fuck would happen that would be beneficial in this situation? I mean, I would guess, I guess I'd rule that it breaks like right as he's at the end of it. And so he makes it out by jumping off. But it's not very exciting. I guess we don't have the door anymore if we wanted to come back. But there are other doors, and we're definitely never coming back. But I suppose I didn't expect to roll a 20 there. Well, this is Quinn coming across. So yeah, I guess, yeah, it breaks, but he manages to get flung off onto the other side. And so everything's okay, but the door's broken. And we gather up our rope. We've got our scepter. We're leaving with one less person than we came in, but it's all right. And as we step out of the dungeon back into the open air, there's the giant frog waiting for us. I decided this minutes ago. He's upset that we didn't die in his dungeon and we took his scepter. He's had enough of this shit. He's just gonna fucking kill us himself. Slowly. He's gonna enjoy it. And he's gonna mount our heads on his wall. All friendliness has disappeared. He's level 3 and Quinn has 1 health. This isn't good. But of course, I do have a Scepter of Charm that I could just use on him. He didn't think of that, did he? Gonna slowly melt us in frog slime. Oh god. Well, we'll see. We'll see based on initiative here. Alright, so the frog's roll is a 9. It's not very good. Quinn's roll is a 20. Holy shit, he's raring to go. And my roll is a 6. So I actually go after the frog. That complicates things. I can't really use the charm staff if Quinn's beating on him. And Quinn's probably going to die. So, but all right, Quinn rushes in. He's had it. He's had it. So he rushes in with his club, and he rolls a 3. So he misses big time. Now, this thing has swallow and gas. Damn. Okay, yeah. He's gonna try and swallow Quinn, I suppose. Wait, does it say... I mean, here it just seems to imply that it just happens. But I think he should roll an attack at the very least. So he's going to try and swallow Quinn. He's going to roll his d20 plus d4, and it's against Quinn's 11 defense. Alright, he definitely misses. Quinn's hot on his toes. He's ready to do this. Alright, I'm going to break the Totem of Prowess, one of them. I'm ruling that as a free action. Just because that's like, you know, you snap it in half. That shouldn't take your whole turn, I don't think. So now, that's pretty handy then. Because I believe I have advantage on all attack rolls for 2 turns. So this turn and next turn, we're good to go. Alright, so here we go with a roll. We got a 17. Alright, that's already good. And my damage of d6 is 5 damage. Excellent. He's got no damage reduction, so he's at 7 health. Quinn is going to go. He's going to roll his d20. You get a 5. He's going to miss. The frog is going to try and swallow him, and he succeeds, no problem. So Quinn, I see, just get gulped up by this giant frog. Now, there's a chance, I think, that Quinn could survive, but it's slim. So now I'm going to roll advantage, definitely a hit, and damage is 6 damage. So he's already at 1 health. But Quinn's survival pretty much comes down to this roll. Because he'll take d4 damage each turn unless he can break free with an opposed check or combat damage. Combat damage. I'm not quite sure what that means. But I guess we'll just do an opposed check of strength against strength? I'm not quite sure. Or you could just do combat damage. I suppose you could just try and club him from inside. He's got 1 health left. They both have 1 health left. Alright, we're just gonna roll a d20. Okay? For his attack. Pretty much, if Quinn rolls 10 or higher, it's 50-50. The frog's gonna just like regurgitate Quinn and die. Here we go. Alright, I mean then, you know, I answer to what the dice say. I don't fudge stuff. So Quinn failed to do any damage to the frog, and he takes his d4 damage and dies. You like the idea of him killing him from inside? Yeah, I liked that idea too, Durden. It's a shame it didn't happen. Alright. I'm gonna have the giant frog use his gas ability now on his turn. So it's a burp, short range, all in area, impaired, which is disadvantage on everything. I don't know if there's a check for that. Okay. Monster skill versus fortitude save. Alright. I have nothing in fortitude, so this is his d20 plus 4, which is 9, versus my straight d20. 5. Alright, I am impaired. This horrible gas that smells of Quinn's corpse. And now I'm gonna try and shoot with disadvantage. You never know. We got an 11. So 15 or... Alright, we got a 15. Yeah, he's dead. I only have to do 1 damage. I did 1 damage. Shabam! Take that, giant frog. Okay. Quinn, level dead. I lost both of my companions on our first mission into some dangerous area. But they were quite weak. I suppose I should feel bad, but I mean, this is kind of what they're for. They're just random hirelings. But Patrick wasn't random, goddammit. He had a name. He had a face. I'm getting treasure from this frog. This frog, you know, he was a smart frog. He had a satchel. Yeah, I don't know where he kept it. He shoved it up his ass or something, but god damn it, he had treasure. D6. It's a 6. He had high treasure. Loads of money. 800 silver he had. I decree. Now I have 827 silver. You know what? Fuck it. I know Patrick. I know his family. They live in the dregs with me. I didn't really know Quinn family. That was a random hire. But I knew Patrick. I'm giving his family 100 silver. Boom. Done. I'll tell him how brave he was. His corpse, unfortunately, unrecoverable. But, you know, he was quite brave, I assure you. I won't get into specifics. As for Quinn, I don't know. I don't really want to bring his body back. I probably just won't mention it to anyone. Okay. And now I'm going to head back to town. So let's recap then. Hired Quinn. Went out into forest. Met Giant Frog, who was very helpful. Led us to a dungeon. Patrick died from fall. We found Scepter of Endless Charm. Fought Giant Frog, who was a serial killer. Quinn died. Yeah, that's what happened. Alright, we're about to end for the night. But, I think I'm gonna level us up. I think we're level 2 now. The rule, you know, I typically don't go for XP. I don't like XP systems in tabletop and stuff like that. But if we look at the level advancement, level up for a human is 10 XP. Okay. And the XP for completing a side quest is 5. So you complete 2 side quests, you get a level, or an adventure quest. Now, I would constitute this whole thing as a side quest, but I also constituted all the other stuff we did as a side quest, like planting the meat. It's vague, but 3 sessions actually we've done now. I'm counting it. We're leveling up. So we get plus 2 health, of which I didn't lose a single hit point. I just had bodies in front of me. Okay, so we're at 15 health. We get +1 defense now, so we're at 11 defense. Pretty good. We get to improve 1 attribute, and then learn or improve 2 different skills. For an attribute, we could take agility all the way to a D8, which is pretty awesome. I don't know, I feel like senses and stuff I should do more often. Like, I don't check it enough as, like, a DM. But I don't know. We did finally have a fortitude check, but strength is also useful. I just feel like we do a lot of agility stuff. Strength would give us another carry slot, which is pretty good. Alright, let's go for that. I like carrying stuff. Now that Patrick's dead, it's important. Okay. Wish that highlighted, but there you go. And then 2 skills. Gosh, we haven't checked almost anything. Gosh. Let's grab melee combat and ranged combat. Maybe not the best bet. And then we get a new class ability and proficiency with 2 more spells. Now, we're multi-classing. We already decided that. Multi-classing is really basic. You just take a different class. You can only do this once per your entire character, though. So, we want a character class that has access to a load of different spells. And there's definitely a good choice. The Warlock. Look at this. They can learn how to use air, arcane, earth, fire, form, ice, psionic, matter, shadow, water. They can learn how to cast all that shit. Now, pragmatically, we could pick ice right now, and we'd have the ice stuff. We'd have that. We wouldn't have to spend the money on the ice armor. That would be all good. What was the other spell that we wanted? What was the one that I was like, that would be good? Amplified? Fuck, what was the plan? Oh, like the breathing thing. Yeah, okay. So that would fall either... I would say we could just use water for that. But there's a lot of different things, man. Psionic? Shadow? Matter? These are all spells. So psionic is stuff like dominating a target, which we kind of already have. Mind reading, precognition, psychic blast, telekinesis, telepathy. Shadow is stuff like mirror images, duplicates, disguises, shadow blades, shadow form. Shroud for invisibility. Invisibility is pretty damn good. But shadow form turns caster into a shadowy form, allowing them to move, slip in small gaps, cannot be targeted, act, or engage others whilst in shadow form. That probably means you're immune to spores. And turns 2 for duration. Out of combat, out of danger, that's like a whole day. I can be a shadow for a whole day. We probably wouldn't rule it that way, but 20 minutes. Maybe I should decide next time when I thought of a plan. That is a good thing to say, Durden. I'm going to agree with that. We will decide. We're definitely taking Warlock. There's no doubt in my mind. I already thought of that. We're level 2, Ranger, Warlock. Ranger 1, Warlock 1. And, so we'll decide the magic school next time that we want to pick the domain, and then I get 2 more proficiencies, which could be in totem or could be in whatever other one I pick. But yeah, we'll count that as a pretty successful session. We didn't really advance the spore situation, and we did spend like an hour talking about the setting, but we did our first dungeon crawl, and yeah, I mean, overall it was fairly successful. We have money now. So now I could probably hire like 10 sellswords if I want. But I think you run into kind of a population issue of actually finding this many people that want to go on stupid missions with you. But yeah, good stuff. The solo RPG, it's not perfect. I don't think it's like a true blood replacement for playing with other people. That's always going to be the best, assuming you have a good group. We do run into certain issues, being our own DM, of like dungeons as we saw, and maps, and certain decisions. But I think it's a lot of fun. I do. So I'm enjoying this weekly thing, and we're going to keep that up. Thank you, Durden, for hanging out, providing all these comments and suggestions. That helps a lot, I gotta say. Having someone to bounce stuff off of and suggest things. Hopefully, if this keeps going, we get some more people in here to really have a little community. But yeah, good stuff. Alright, my name is Mang. This has been Solo Roll Manging, and I'll see you fine folks next week.